Welcome back to Afrobeat Radio in New York, on WBAI New York. Sabi Dimas by Lura. That's new music from Cabavage in the very exciting Funana style. I'm sure you were dancing to that as we were in the studio. We won't lie. I was shaking to it. Welcome back. And in the studio with me is blogger, poet, and spoken word artist Ben Henson. He joins us to talk about his upcoming project, Eteka, Rise of the Imamba. First off, is a poet also a spoken word artist?
Oh, I don't even know who put that spoken word artist tag on me. I don't think, I guess they're the same. I've never really thought about that in detail. I'm just, for me personally, I just like the arts form of lyrical alchemy, which is just putting words together that make sense in a rhythmical fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So if, a rapper falls into that category, rappers, I will call them poets. I'll call spoken word guys that don't necessarily rhyme. So I don't really follow too much spoken word artists. I don't know much about that art form, but I'll call myself a lyrical alchemist.
A lyrical, I like that. I like that. Yeah. Poets sound like, hoity-toity kind of thing these days. It used to be, come on, I mean, you know what, poets, they usually,
They used to be the classical.
They publish books.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Spoken word artists speak. I guess.
They speak, they do the whole speaking thing.
Yeah.
I guess I don't really follow too much spoken word stuff.
But anyways,
yeah.
So you're an author.
I'm an author. That I am, for sure.
You've published your first book, which is titled...
I published a collection of poetry, I guess you could say, was it 2 years ago? And I published a book long ago that's out of print called 3 Months. This was back in 2008. That was my first amateur foray into the literary space. But I have a very exciting project now that I'm wrapping up, which is what we're going to talk about. Eteka, Rise of the Imamba. Yeah,
right.
For sure.
So at least we know you're a poet because you've published a book.
Wuyi.
All right. So Eteka, Rise of the Imamba. What exactly is this book about?
So this book is a very big project. I've been working on it since 2009. So the short version is the book is about mercenary activity, global mercenary activity during the Cold War era and the 1990s. So the book has two parallel storylines. So I don't know if you remember The Godfather. I think it was part 2 with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, where you had the father and the son, that kind of thing. So it has two parallel storylines. It takes place across 14 locations around the world. We have Ghana, Nigeria, Congo DRC, United States, New York, and Detroit. You have England. You have Indonesia. You have Tanzania, Ethiopia, South Africa. I mean, I went all out. So it's a very exciting story, set of stories actually that takes place across all these regions. There's a lot of historical context, a lot of culture. Yeah, in for one heck of a ride for sure.
What's the driving theme or themes? What is pushing this storyline or the storylines that you have?
The themes pushing the story. That's a good question. The themes pushing the story, and I would say, destiny, love, revenge, and self-discovery. As to give a very abstract answer to that question. But the premise, more or less, is just there are a couple of storylines, but each storyline is unique, and they kind of like similar to the movie Crash, where you have these different stories that intertwine. That's the way this book is written.
Okay.
They're unique, the individual stories that you can read on an individual basis that take place across these different regions, so you can explore different cultures, but they all connect at different points in the story. So yeah, those are the general themes pushing the story, and just great characters I created for sure.
Why did you write this stuff? Why did you write this book? Or why are you writing this book?
Why? That's a good question. I don't know why, to be honest with you. I was just sitting one day. I believe, this is just my personal truth. You can believe what you want, but I believe sometimes when something's really unique, God just drops an idea in your head, boop, and just go to work, and it's up to you to act on it. So that was what happened to me. I wrote a book before. I came up with the idea for this book. I remember I was this is long ago. I was going to a hustle gig I had, and I was just sitting on the ride, and then this idea just hit me. I've always wanted to do something gritty, and a lot of the African literature we have tends to be very, and it's not bad. It's a lot of about the journey of the African diaspora journey, and or it's like some child soldier story or something. I want to do something that's different, something that kind of empowers us to make decisions, to have control of the situation, not having the situation necessarily control us, and we're trying to explain how we fit into the moving forces of life.
Mm-hmm.
The characters in my book are very powerful. They take control. They're not subject to the force. They are, but you see a lot more power in their stories and in their decision making. There's some very sinister characters in the book, and I go all out. I'm not trying to hide any bad guy stuff. And there are also some very good people in the book. There are people who are conflicted. And generally, if you think about it, these kind of themes are the themes that drive some of the best stories we see today. If you look at Star Wars, it's all about self-discovery, love, truth at the core of the story. All the good movies and stuff, these are the themes. And I wanted to use our culture to kind of tell those stories from my own unique perspective.
The period that you chose is also a very rich period.
Exactly.
It's very rich politically.
Yeah, it's a gold
socially,
mine.
It's a gold mine.
Yep.
So there's plenty you can do with it. One of the things I did notice on your blog, and in basically looking through, doing some research on your website and some of the things that you've done, is there's a lot of illustration.
Yes.
I also noticed that on your blog you have recipes for foods from different locations in the novel, right, which is what I find it very interesting that so I also noticed that you did some sort of like location essays. So there's essay on South Africa, which is one of your locations,
right,
and so on and so forth. Why did you take that approach?
Right.
Is there an odd, do you find there's a cultural necessity to inform about those aspects of
right. So my approach for that was, I am also an entrepreneur along with being an author. This book is being published through my company. I'm not going the traditional route, going through a big name publisher who's going to have a marketing team doing this for me. I do everything myself, and that allows me to be a bit more creative. Right. So I always try and think about who's looking at me. Right. So I want my book to be read by everyone. I want to tell a localized story to an international audience. Right. So in that vein, I can't just write specific book to have a specific literary community look at my work. I want my book to be read by the intellectual in the classroom, as well as the guy on the street in Harlem who's selling stuff on Frederick Douglass Boulevard, who may not even know how to, his English may not be the best, or in that same vein, the guy on the street in Ojuelegba in Lagos, or the guy on the street in Medina in Ghana, or whatever slum or ghetto you're talking about in Kingston. I want everyone to read this book and say, man, this is a good piece of literature. I want it to be relatable. So in that vein, there's a lot of education that needs to happen. I can't just write a book and give it to you. I have to set the precedent. So that's why the blog exists, to kind of take my audience who may not be familiar with those areas, and there's no one who's really familiar with all those areas, because we all come, some people are Nigerians, some people are Ghanaians, some people are Americans. So it's kind of introducing us all to each other and setting the tone for the book. So on the blog we have, like you said, we have the historical overviews which I wrote for each country, that explains the history, the economy, the general culture. Then we have the recipes. So if you want to know what it's like to eat food there, that exists. If you want to, I just set up a new one called music. So we have some musicians I put up there. I put Teddy Afro from Ethiopia. I put Nice from Nigeria. He's up there. From London, Jamiroquai is up there, and give a little background on them. We have architecture, because that's something people want to look at buildings. So I write detailed overviews of a lot of the buildings that stand out to me. So the Makam Ishahid in Algeria, I wrote a piece on. I wrote a piece on in New York, the Jerry building. Just things that stand out. Just so when people read this book, they're like, man, I read this blog, it complements the book. It's a holistic experience, and that's what I'm really going for. Just to not just be an author, but also be an educator as well. For sure.
That's interesting, because oftentimes especially within the diasporic settings, we don't have information about other places.
Exactly.
And they're not often explained, in this way.
Right.
Well, I mean, they don't have to be.
Yeah.
But it's a unique approach. So what informed that approach, and what continues to inform that approach? Because that's
right.
a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of late nights and early mornings. So
yeah,
what
and
informed
there are young people listening to this who want to write.
Right.
And sometimes people don't understand the amount of research that they have to do to go into writing. So talk to them.
Yeah, it's a PhD level, maybe even beyond effort. So, what drives it is I like being different. I don't like being like anybody else. I don't like sounding or looking like anyone else. So whenever I come with a project, I look at my competition or my peers or whoever it may be, and I see how they come across, and I say, okay, I don't want to look like you. I want to do something different that. I have my trademark. This, when you see this is Ben Henson. This is not, all the other guys sound the same and they all have the same kind of conversations, but then Ben Henson is on his own lane. This is what he does. So I looked around. I didn't see any author or anyone who was, before the book came out, put all this research and stuff out in a palatable format for the audiences. There's no one who's done what I've done. I've done enough research. I've not seen anybody who's done this. So I said, okay, this is a chance for me to come up on my own lane and do something unique, and that was pretty much it.
Do you have well, first off, you have a website and some information where people can follow up your blog and your website. Let's get that information out first, and then we'll take the next one.
Okay. So my website has everything there. My website is www.benhenson, that's B-E-N for Nancy, H-I-N for Nancy, S-O-N, benhenson.com. And on my blog, you can find everything. My blog, if you click on the blog navigation menu, there is that takes you to the publication sites, and it's at the publication hub, and you can see all the recipes. You can see the historical overviews. You can see the all the musicians there I've listed. You can see all the architecture. There's a lot of rich, cool information. So just go check it out. And then my blog also has one really cool thing I did on my blog, which I was pretty cool, pretty amped about it, was the map I created. I created this interactive map where when you go on the map, you can just literally click on each flag on the globe, and it takes you to the overviews we spoke about. So that's a lot of people love that thing. When I did it, I got a great response. It's going over really, really well. So just check out the website, www.benhenson.com, and all the information you need is right. There are also great videos over there too. So I encourage you to go there and check them out.
Well, I would like for you to read something from the book.
Okay.
And, so let's do that first.
Okay.
When you're ready.
All right. So, so another thing that's on the book is also, there's a preview scene. It's a very short preview scene. It doesn't give anything away. It just gives you a sense of the pace and what to expect in the book. Again, this is a thriller. It has action and a lot of history and stuff in it. So I'm just going to read that same preview scene. It exists on the website, so you can read it for yourself. Okay, so this is the preview scene, and this the backdrop to the preview scene is Lagos. This is happening in Lagos. Okay, all right. So her blood covered his arms and chest, his singlet drenched with her ebbing life. He carried her, running as fast as he could through the dark and abandoned warehouse somewhere in Abuja, Nigeria. His heart pounded, and the African heat gave him a headache that narrowed his field of vision to only the dying woman in his arms and a portion of the dim warehouse. He had to stop the bleeding, but they were right behind him, and he couldn't stop. He tore his eyes away from her and kept running. Blood bubbled from the hole in her neck, pulsing in time to her slowing heart. His powerful arms clutched her close as he desperately tried to search for a safe place to set her down and wrap a piece of his shirt around her neck to slow down the bleeding. They were both sticky from the heat, and he could feel her heart skipping beats, winding down the clock of her lifetime. In the distance, he heard the BMW and the stolen motorcycles screech to a halt. Car doors opened, and footsteps began to approach the warehouse. The two of them were out of time. He was scared. Now they're approaching thugs, but because he felt life leaving his lover's body, this woman he had just started to know. The only beautiful thing in his life now lay dying in his arms, her skin swiftly losing its usual ebony glow. She choked on her own blood as she coughed and looked at him with terror in her eyes. Climbing more stairs, he found a pillar in a concealed corner of the warehouse. The thugs were close. He heard them yelling insults and taunts in the local dialects of Yoruba, Igbo, and Nigerian Pidgin English. From their footsteps, he guessed there were at least 4 of them. He wanted to plan his defense, but, setting his lover against the pillar, he ripped off a piece of his shirt and wrapped it around her neck. No cell phone on him to call for help. The clip in his Taurus PT-92 was only good for 2 more shots. Nowhere to run. Footsteps echoed up the stairs. His pursuers were only a few feet away. "Please don't leave," he whispered to her. She was still and beautiful. A tear rolled down his cheek, and with a heavy heart, he knew his time with her was about to end. She tried to respond but was unable as she choked on her own blood. She still managed a lopsided smile. The thugs were in the room now. His adrenaline spiked. He had to move quickly. He took one last look at her, then spun around to face the men. In his mind, he told her that he had always loved her because there was no time to do it with his lips. Things had not always been like this.
Nice.
And that's a very short preview scene from the book. Very intense, hardcore stuff, but it's also very educational, very exciting. There's just a lot of, like, if you think of like a meal with like all kinds of flavor, this is it.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Wuyi, thanks for having me, man.
Man, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We all look forward to this coming out very soon. When do you think this will be out?
I've given a few dates, and then, there are some setbacks happening here and there. So for now, in a few months, we're shooting for by the end of this year, early next year, latest.
Okay.
So that's the time to look out for. But in the meantime, we're pumping out a lot of fresh content. Check out the website, www.benhenson.com, and keep up with me.
And we've been talking to Eteka, Ben Henson, the author of the upcoming book, Eteka, Rise of Imamba. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been great having you. I'm looking forward to having you again.
Wuyi, let's talk when the book comes out.
Sure. We've come to the end of the show. It's been a wonderful show, and I thank you for it. We're going to go out with the music, Akojade by Beautiful Nubia, which is playing right now. And as you know, we've come to this it's end of this show. It's always like that. When we're having fun, it comes to the end. I want to say thank you to our guests, Reshima Brightly of Sabri Education Services, and Ben Henson, the author of Eteka, Rise of Imamba. Today's show was produced by Tyrene Wright, Akinata Hamagaji, and myself, also hosting Wuyi Jacobs. We'll see you next week as we go out with the music of Beautiful Nubia by titled Akojade by Beautiful Nubia, and Liquid Sound Lounge is waiting to happen. Stick around.